Hi, so I can't even see anything because it's just like way too bright outside and way too dark on the screen. But I do want to say, even though all the smoky stuff is happening, it's kind of beautiful. Give some sort of thickness or density to the atmosphere. The sun, like yesterday, I was looking right at the sun, and I'm just thinking, like, I usually don't do this. Something just felt wrong. And I mean, even though it's so beautiful, I could just like zoom into the beauty of everything, but understanding like there's so much interference that it creates its own filter of disbursement of this light and like what that does. And so the way that the air feels, it's like way different than like humid air. It's like thick in the same kind of way, sensationally like breathing in that density and things, but it's a lot less nurturing. It's kind of like the opposite, where you're breathing in a negative ratio, like it's taking away rather than like adding more moisture, because the moisture would be carried in the humid air. This is like drier than typical air, so like feels like it's drying out my lungs and my throat and things like that to breathe this air. But then I'm like focused on more hydration and just limiting my time, but like I still need to be outside. Like I don't ever want to be on lockdown again. Never ever. If that happens, I don't care. I quit society. I'm out to the forest. I'm gone. And I don't really care. Like I can't I know that the world is like very scared. I think I'm more scared of people who are scared than the world itself. Like I think the way we can be sometimes as humans, like without the safety of our own village, or without the safety of leadership that cares or can understand, or it's like things got so backwards. But like in my life, I've been through so many experiences with like toxic people, and I've been in some relationships that really had me questioning like so much and lack of clarity, and like there was a lot of like really harmful ways of those relationships. And so it's like it teaches you a lot about the dynamics of a healthy relationship versus not healthy. And if you've been in those kind of more domineering relationships, or been in a situation that was like abusive even, or like just not healthy, like the toxicity, it's imbalanced, it typically ends up draining you because of the imbalance and lack of recognition, lack of accommodation, lack of like the meeting in the middle part, because I realized recently like that was an overextension. It's just without the sustainability, it is going to be damaging. So like thinking ahead, like intention wise, or like what is it that we are doing when we're engaging and exchanging this energy. Like it's reciprocity. Is it symbiotic? Is it harmonious? Is it helpful? Is it mutually beneficial? Like but sometimes lack of reception of that information, because there's some sort of fear around this to begin with, and then you're like gearing up with this ammo of these beliefs that that you're that can't happen to you, or like whatever we tell ourselves, that divert away from the truth and clarity of what's really happening. So it's to the point where it's so far beyond comprehension sometimes that people literally don't have the capacity to even comprehend this, like this level of stuff, and I kind of like struggle to comprehend this as well, because it's like all our lives, as we're taught through all of these experiences, the social systems and all of the systems, all of them, all these different branches of like wellness or health, or like the basic needs of our humanity, like the infrastructure of this nation. What does every people need for our survival and wellness in the bigger picture? What does a collective survival help us? How does that like look for us? I was just talking to someone about this recently. It's like you really cannot avoid addressing the problems, they will continuously fester and become more potent. They don't go away. Anyone who's like truly avoidant in their way of coping, it's like they're skirting the surface, but they have no idea what lies beneath. The fear will constantly drive them because they won't even go there. Like if we had like just a containment of the self somehow, and I know Jung talked a lot about these, and Freud and early psychologists beginning to build the framework of understanding for human consciousness. Like today we're really able to blend or like mesh it, like take the multi-dimensional approach in many fields of study to contribute to this understanding. Just like any well done peer-reviewed article that has many sources, many pieces of information that are already reliable and valid, where from the get-go, from where we're beginning, we're taking these building blocks to build into something more complex and more perhaps precise. It's not necessarily about the precision, it's about supporting the proper bridge that's going to get us from where we're at in this point of view and the outlook we take, because perspective is everything. And so, and this is really greatly shaped by our beliefs and our ability to understand in the first place. So people coming from certain backgrounds, every one of us comes from some certain background. So like we need to understand it, apply. It's not just like us versus, it's like you too. We're all a part of this. So like, how do you apply this to yourself? How can we honestly look at ourselves and take accountability for our own limitations, or be able to address that, admit that without shame, see the value in not knowing rather than the fear, because the openness towards taking in new information is what is needed for growth and for change. Those who have no ability for this are really working towards keeping hold on the sustainable models that have sustained them thus far, because, and my best guess at this, and I don't know, I would say there's a huge multitude of different reasons, but one of the greater ones is because of exhaustion. And so I realize like some people do not have a capacity, not by choice or not by like willful ignorance, which can be part of it. But when we think of it as willful ignorance, that's kind of undermining. I believe that there's a better way to think about that too. Could look the same, but for the people, it's not going to allow them to truly take an honest look at that. And the reason being, not because they don't want to, but because they simply can't. They don't have accessible energetic resources to even begin that process. They're already so exhausted and reliant on the systems that carry them through. So to dismantle those systems threatens their survival. Therefore, they have no capacity for that, for change, for starting to begin to learn something of that nature, and see how it can like incorporate into their lives or into the greater picture of the collective, which would really, ask that like a lot of people in this current societal arrangement like be able to take pillars, to be able to take on a position as a stronghold in the carrying forward of like a collective belief, which is a bigger scale. We have to make it make sense somehow, in a way that's not going to threaten or cause more fear, because that's continuously closing people's awareness. Is basically just a shutdown for self-preservation. But in this way, it becomes more stagnant, less flow is possible. There's like these blocks in the greater collective organism. So when we consider currency, consider flow, consider the energetic forms, consider money, consider health, consider accessible necessities, or lack of access to the necessities, like people in their survival states and suffering, and the increasing demand and like the decreasing available resources. Like that's a really dangerous combination. Where does fear come from? Fear is so, oh my God, such a valid response to these conditions, where it feels so far beyond our control. So how can we best cope with that? Well, to eliminate the fear, perhaps we eliminate the input altogether and just turn the other cheek. Like maybe it wasn't necessarily a choice to be so ignorant. Maybe it was just naturally the result of like an ongoing lack of capacity to even take that on. People are doing the best they can. So like, I think I was holding some judgment against those who seem to refuse to quote unquote wake up or like take on more of a consideration for the bigger picture. And they really narrow down into their own individual perspectives. But what I'm seeing in the bigger, like in the way of the full range, okay, it's a full spectrum. So like, I've been across the spectrum too. I've been in that narrow perspective. I've been in a very expansive perspective. I've been across the board. I've met a lot of different people and try to like observe and understand their perspectives, because it only helps us. I mean, that's the allowance of my life has given me the understanding that learning is a vehicle within itself to continually propel us forward in this life. And I believe that, but then there's this rift in the connection. So it's like a different kind of personal hell when you are holding this great wisdom and have no capacity to share or ability to have that information land. Like, if you're surrounded by people who just do not speak that language, cannot understand you, it can be really discouraging. It can really affect how we perceive ourselves or the information or any of it. And so, like, aside from their responses being like a guiding factor in where to go with this input and this motivation and this kind of energetic push, sorry, like, there's just so much to say about this, but the main point is like, understand, like, people are not always consciously, purposefully, intentionally trying to stifle the growth of the greater collective. They are not working against themselves on purpose. Okay, we are not working against ourselves on purpose. It wouldn't be the choice to do that. It's just that we have no knowledge of a better path, and it is the best we can do. So even though it's one step forward and two steps back sometimes, it's like through that process, generally I think the awareness would come that this isn't the most efficient way. Like, there are ways to improve, like through every rehearsal, every practice, every piece of these, new contributions that come into the mix and kind of just continually add into that flow and where it will take us. It's like, don't let yourself believe that the humans would willfully, maliciously, like, want to stop their own evolution or growth or survival. The perception of what it means, it's different for everybody. So the pushing of the fear, understand when people are afraid, when they're in a frequency of fear, it's very limiting. Like, the awareness closes down, everything becomes inverse. It's like this outer shell, this armor, repellent force against whatever's incoming. Like, it's not going to land. Don't expect it to land. That can't be the goal anymore. Like, just to gather up the troops is not the goal. Keep pushing forward. I think sometimes in time, it takes a while to sink in. Like, even things from the past that perhaps didn't land then, 2 years ago when we had that conversation, it's like suddenly something of today may bring you back to that. Like, that's where, like, this aspect of time, not necessarily as linear. Like, have faith in the seeds you're planting, regardless of like an obvious show of that outcome or the way that they land and how it produces. Like, some of the greatest artists of our history, in their lifetimes, never believed their art was good, but they kept making art, because the reason they did that came from the inside out. And so I think, like, the more that we attune to that energy from the inside out, I mean, that's the sustainable path. So if it seems like the resistance is external, coming at you and like pushing you back in, I think we can receive that message, like, rather than trying to like push back to like force through those barriers. Like I realize now, the way that I perceived it was limited in the fact that, like, I thought that was the only possible environment that I could work within to be able to deliver this message or whatever. But I find now that, like, you know, a lot of groups and constellations and cliques and people, however their identifiers bring them together into these clusters, there are many forms, and they all operate in their own ways, you know. And a recent thought came so many times where it's like back in the day when cliques in schools became more obvious to me. I would typically want to be a part of that group just because socially there was like a safety in having that sense of belonging, even if it was like 5 people, you know. But then I would witness from that perspective in a group, I would witness these other outliers, these people who seem to have everything and nothing. Like they would be the in-between. Like they could bounce back and forth. They could go any group and still belong. They were always welcome anywhere you'd find them. I wouldn't be surprised. Like the versatility was incredible. And so I was thinking recently more about some of the people that I've known in my life like that, as an example. And even though my perspective came from being in a group at that time, I see myself now, and I understand that. I think that's what I'm meant for, because of the ability to expand and contract and go full range, because of that ability of versatility, multilingual, multidimensional, like translations in between. And so like all of the capsules of everything are individual, like, but together they build up and build up. There is always something kind of like the glue that keeps things together. And I've been thinking a lot about this in terms of culture. Like that's what culture is. It is whatever it is that brings us together, because we need togetherness. And when there's togetherness, there's a connection that spans across people, and there's something similar between them that they share. And that bond actually creates another capsule around the people within it, and it expands you to that outer layer, which is like this bigger piece. If you ever try to do like a massive project by yourself, it's extremely exhausting. So what I perceive happening, or what I would hope for, is having more to give towards the culture, and those in-betweens helps to like bridge this rift that's perceived in between, that is divisive. And when we feel more inclusive, we're feeling more safe. It's easier to understand. You don't know everything, and you don't have to. Like, it's not a one-person show. It's like all of us have unique gifts to offer towards the bigger picture. And so rather than feeling like you have to do it all and exhausting yourself beyond belief, and then being like literally inefficient or not able, I guess, to like ignite your own passion, dip into your higher potential, it's like self-preservation it eats you from the inside out sometimes if you're not even fulfilling your own destiny. Like you can't. Okay, I was once in a hiring position, working for HR, working as an HR assistant, conducting interviews. I was trying to find jobs for people, and I would do interviews with them and find out more about them, and just kind of see what we had available and where they might be a good fit. So one time I was working with a lot of refugees as well, and there was this certain individual who had like an incredible work history, education. He was like an astrophysicist. He was like doing all this, worked in research, worked in high level. He had a PhD. He had all these degrees, all these sort of like just such a very, very high level professional. I was confused because most of the people I was working with were like manufacturing positions, light industrial, some office jobs, like nothing of this caliber at all. The barrier here was being a refugee, not speaking English. And nobody speaks Arabic, or I'm guessing it was Arabic. I don't actually know. And we had a translator, but there was still so much. What kind of job is here for an astrophysicist in this place when you are coming from that position? I felt horrible. I'm like, dude, you're like a genius. Here I am, a young, like 20-something person hiring. I felt so out of place in the role that I was expected to do. It felt unfair, because morally I know that there was nothing that would truly honor his gifts and his intelligence and knowledge body, all that. But the surprising part was it didn't even matter. Like, he was grateful, more grateful than most people that I would typically get into these positions. I was able to get him a job in a factory doing light manufacturing work. I think it was like picking and packing at like a freaking whatever. This guy, I've never seen more gratitude on the face of a person, like to know that he had a job, like $15 an hour or less, probably less because it would have been 15, but because of the middleman person, which was our organization, doing the connections, saving the bigger company a lot of time, having to go through interviews and find employees and all of this. They had like whatever the reasoning, it doesn't even matter. This guy had more gratitude for the fact that he had a job at all. Like, his life took on new purpose, it took a new direction, he had new opportunities, and he saw that. And that's where like this amount of like gratitude just pouring out, like the way we perceive these opportunities, the way we perceive the value in anything, if we stop at that dollar sign, I think we're really limited, because even what that means to us is all different based on these perspectives. So like, without being able to take a step back and like see, you know, in the grand scheme of things, like, well, where does this really play out, or what is really needed? Sometimes it is that immediate gratification that is needed, but like, I think a lot of times we can slow down and like understand like these quick fix desires and you know, like the one and done, I'll save your life kind of thing, pills, medications, like all of these promises that you know, we need to be realistic and understand the long-term investment that is required for stability, for true stability. The more short-term, high-intensity things that are happening, it's becoming more and more volatile, chaotic, and less trusting of its own self, because that stuff doesn't work. But unless you can admit that, we're going to continue to repeat it. And I think it's still going to be getting a lot worse before it gets better. So, but it's like simultaneously in transition. So like, have faith, but also honor the truth of your needs. Understand quick fix stuff is just bullshit. Like, don't even waste your time. Try to see the value in the time. The fact that you exist here at all is value. Don't let that go to waste. Don't for one moment believe that doesn't coincide with your life. Like, if you are here at all, it's a miracle. So if we can't even see that, we have to at least bring ourselves up to a level of operation where sustainability is possible, or life is not such a struggle, so we can then take the next step. And also, the criticism for people who are struggling needs to really be reframed in a way that we can understand how to regather our humanity, our human compassion, and know that like all of that energy is like parasitic and detrimental, not just to that person that you're talking shit about and putting shame upon, but like the greater beliefs, the greater like system that guides all of us. So even the little things do matter. Even if it's just one small thing a day, I believe it matters. That's how I've been slowly rebuilding my own life. So just, yeah, don't give up your hope, and realize like, if you're not seeing the value in this, sometimes the first step is to be able to remember like your perspective is just one tiny keyhole in the greater span of everything. Like, there's always so much more. So don't be afraid to be wrong or to not know. The fear closes us, so we need to remain open for that incoming refreshment of the energy, the information, and our own evolution and survival. Yeah, don't be so afraid. Like, the lack of trust is not helpful. Finding trust, maybe turn it sideways and try to see things in a different way. Like, understand there's more to the story. Ask more questions. Open doors, you know, for others. But realize your greater purpose is not something that you probably even know in the stance that you're at. Like, you might think you do, but like, sometimes those things shift and change too. So like, just be careful with how tightly we grip onto these ideas, because as it goes, things can always keep changing, and they do. And the more we can accept that, the more we change too along with it, rather than hurting ourselves by trying to double down on the forceful presence of something that is no longer sustainable, relevant, or necessary at all. If it's not necessary, and it's like where the indulgence keeps like pouring into, or like you're like taking in this thing that's not really helpful, it's like you're taking away from what potential exists that actually could be helpful. And there was a great wise man who once told me, you know, every moment that you give to these negative consuming thoughts or ideas, or every moment that you spend complaining, you know, is a moment that takes away from the potential of happiness. And so what we're technically in the pursuit of, what we are focused on, what we're capable to see from any given perspective, it might help you to see yourself a little bit more in truth, so that your efforts are more effective in showing you the value. Because if it keeps not working, you might mistake that for your own personal value, which is just a misunderstanding. Like, and we're leaving most of our reserves like buried deep down, and we're afraid to even touch them. But don't be afraid of integrating your own subconscious. That's actually to your benefit. Like, the greater capacity we have to engage in this world, what potential exists within the course of our own lives, it just highly depends on that. Like, if you keep yourself operating at a fraction of your full potential, you're not ever tapping into like this huge reserve that you have within yourself. So that's what fear will do. It will keep people avoiding things like emotions or memories or processing. It's like, okay, you're weighing yourself down and you're already at half capacity. Like, why not turn in, take a little bit of time to really get to know yourself in that way, and like masterfully feel into the crevices of your own self, your own soul, your body, the way of your thinking, be able to observe this in a more neutral perspective. Be able to understand how every single aspect of the self is another language, it's another tool, it's another format, and it is a key. And we're unlocking more as we keep going. So remaining in the same repetitive patterns doesn't really offer new refreshment of that energy. And it can actually lead us into a great deal of stagnation, depression, hopelessness, etc. So I think that's all I gotta say. I've been talking for like literally half an hour. Time goes fast sometimes, but hey, I guess I'm just here for this. Thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you guys another time. Remember, stay well, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and yeah, let's have a good one. Let's keep raising those vibes. Love you guys. Bye.